everybody. All right, let me get into the voice chat. Thank you all for being here and watching tonight. And yeah, let's get to it. Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're good. Hi.
Oh, she's here.
I'm here. Shh. Put on your best behavior.
No.
Oh, okay. Well.
Pulling more rank now. We got to be our best behavior.
Yeah, damn straight.
No.
Yeah.
Sure, we will respect your authority.
Yeah, Gunmar.
I respect nobody's authority but my own, so.
All right. I'm a little rusty on these chapters because I read them on Thursday before going to trauma bonding. So, but, see that, wait, no, that's chapter 8. I flipped back too far. Hold on.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I think I read this on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
And so that feels like I couldn't even remember what they were about. And then I was like, oh yeah, okay, spiders and then barrels. Got it. Spiders and barrels.
Seems about right. Okay, where to begin? Chapter 9, Rose. Well, or Astrid, rather. Sorry. Wrong universe. All right, let's see. All right. As I'm like skimming the first little chapters to remember. Okay. Who wants to start it off while I remember what these chapters are about?
Yeah, I think one of the more fascinating things to me is, we realize that, later on, wearing the ring for any period of time causes such, heartache and grief. But here, apparently, he wore the ring solid for like weeks at a time and, didn't have the same impact from it. So just kind of interesting to see how the impact of the ring kind of changed as the necromancer became more prominent, as it were. But he wore the ring straight on for weeks at a time here, which I just find, it does not seem like it would be healthy the way the ring is portrayed in the movies for Frodo.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we had mentioned that last week too about the like Tim had made the comment of, like, oh, like wore the ring a really long time, and it was like, wait, what? And then here it is. Excuse me.
I'm glad they didn't try and fit any love story in the book part here.
Oh, yeah. You were saying, Siv?
Because he spends like a long time running, like hiding in the elven castle, right? I didn't I said I read this about a week ago, so it's a little fuzzy, but I remember it was like weeks. He like hides in their castle.
Yeah. And he like sneaks out of the doors when they go like out, I think like hunting or something. Is that in here? Mm-hmm. And yeah, like and I think even in this, I flipped back too far. Where is he? Oh no, that's describing King. What's his name? Yeah, because like in the very beginning is when they first get captured, the rest of the dwarves, and like in the second paragraph, it was like, it's like, and all except Bilbo, who popped on his ring and slipped quickly to one side. This is why when the elves bound the dwarves in a long line, one behind the other, and counted them, they never found or counted the hobbit. And then he was like walking in with them, and yeah, and I liked this part where like he also is saying he did not at all like the look of the cavern mouth, and he only made up his mind not to desert his friends just in time to scuttle over at the heels of the last elves before the great gates of the king closed behind them with a clang. And it was like, oh, like Bilbo likes his companions. He doesn't want to abandon them.
It's a found family.
Oh, what's that like? What's
Yep.
that like?
Wouldn't know anything about it.
No, never.
Nothing.
Yeah, and I felt like this description of how do you? I always forget how to pronounce his name. Was it Thorunding? Legolas's dad.
Thranduil?
That one. There's extra consonants in there that just make it weird. But I felt like this description of him was very accurately portrayed in the movies.
They did do a good job casting him.
Yeah.
What's his name? I can't remember the actor.
But then, because it's just like even this just description of like, in a great hall with pillars hewn out of the living stone sat the Elven King on a chair of carven wood. On his head was a crown of berries and red leaves, for the autumn was come again. In the spring he wore a crown of woodland flowers. In his hand he held a carven staff of oak. And it's like that's pretty much what's described or like shown in the movies. And yeah.
That
And
dude's
go ahead.
actually that tall too. He's like 6'5". So he probably walked in and they're like, "Yep, that's him."
The actor?
Yeah, Lee Pace, the guy who plays Thranduil, he's really that tall.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's over a foot taller than me. So is most people. Yeah. Yeah, and like again, I'm kind of like skimming to refresh my mind, but Balin's like poking the bear a little bit, you know, being like, is it a crime to be lost and hungry in the woods?
Trying to lawyer his way out.
Yeah, and then I think, yeah, because it was, yeah, here it is, Civ. Well, here's part of it, Civ, is like, right here, at least for me on page 157, is like, it was a weary long time that he lived in that place all alone. And yeah, took to wandering about the Elven King's palace. Yeah,
Yeah, because
like,
even
then
though
we
it
have to-
takes them a
we have
couple
to-
weeks to find all the dwarves because they're like not kept in the same place.
yeah,
They're spread out, and then it's like takes them even longer to find like the alternate passage and all that. So
that's a very good point.
Oh, and then we have the drink passage. I wish I was back in my hobbit hole by my warm fireside with the lamp shining. Everyone
Yep.
drink.
Yeah, exactly. I just skimmed over that part again. But yeah, here it is. Eventually, after a week or two of this sneaking sort of life, by watching and following the guards and taking what chance he could, he managed to find out where each dwarf was kept.
It's good practice for when he gets to the mountain, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's character development.
Oh, look at this. It's like Tolkien is preparing Bilbo for his ultimate mission. Yeah. Yeah, I felt like these chapters in comparison to last week's like felt much more flowy and like moved on, but then also each individual chapter was also like half the length of last week's chapters. So that probably helped. And then
I do think it's interesting how Thorin, he almost gives up and like offers
yeah.
part of the treasure at that point right before Bilbo shows up. I didn't realize that the last time I wrote it, read it, yes, but it must have really been at his limit for that, because I'm pretty sure he gets a little greedier down the line.
Well, if it's anything like the movies, absolutely.
Yeah.
He gets the sickness.
The sickness. Yeah, but that is a good point, especially considering like, you know, you kind of think of Thorin as this very like strong-willed, like determined very stoic person. So it's like the fact that he was about to kind of throw in the towel, you're like, oh boy, like it must have been pretty bad then. Um, yeah, because then it's talking about, he does a very good job describing the like part, the stream and like the gate down into the water. Which again I felt like was very accurately depicted in the movie as well. Um, yeah. I don't know. Again, I feel like we're all in the same boat of like, we read this almost a week ago. What happened? But there wasn't as much of like this whole like, I might be getting a little ahead of myself in chapters 9 and 10, but there wasn't the whole like massive chase though, like in the movie, right? Like the movie,
No.
yeah,
It's just moving.
yeah. Because
And they're in those barrels, like closed up in those barrels for like 2 full days. Because then they're so messed up when they get out, like that they can barely like move and things. Because I think Bilbo spends like a night, like at like some village along the river, and the poor dwarves are just like stuck in the barrels until like the next night.
Oh, that's
like,
right.
They're in those barrels, like closed up in those barrels for a very long time.
He had like a 3-course meal, and they were like suffering in the barrels.
Yeah.
That sounds about accurate. It's like hobbits, meals, food. Yep. So Bilbo's starting to free them. Yeah, he's telling him the plan about going down the water, and Bilbo gets a little sassy with him. Very well. Come along back to your nice cells, and I will lock you all in again, and you can sit there comfortably and think of a better plan. But I don't suppose I shall ever get hold of the keys again, even if I feel inclined to try. Like, so sassy. Oh, man. Yep, and then, let's see, so... Yep, them all being put away. Yep, and then...
But apparently, they elves can get easily drunk and too drunk to stay awake. They do the drinking contest, which I love in the movie. In the third of the Lord of the Ring movies, but apparently that's not accurate at all to the way they, elves apparently can drink enough to pass out.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just got better stuff than they serve in the Rohirrim.
I think it was a special kind of wine.
Well, yeah, they talk about it as the... let's see, where was it?
They mentioned it was like really fancy wine, right?
Yeah.
Like it was...
Yeah.
Well, for the king's feast, for sure, but...
Yeah.
There stood barrels and barrels and barrels for the wood elves, and especially their king were very fond of wine. Though no vines grew in these parts, the wine and other goods were brought from far away, from the kinsfolk in the south, or from the vineyards of men in distant lands.
There is a portion where he says he followed the 2 elves until they entered a small cellar and sat down at a table on which 2 large flagons were set. Soon they began to drink and laugh merrily, and he says luck of an unusual kind was with Bilbo then. It must be potent wine to make a wood elf drowsy, but this wine, it seemed, was the heady vintage of the great gardens of Dorwinion. So they get the special wine. Just those two guys, and that it was just lucky for him that they drank that specific wine.
The special
Gotcha.
wine. Special wine.
I too want a heady vintage.
It's Mead Man's 15% mead.
Oof. I would be
Still
under
got
the
several
table.
bottles of his I got to go for.
Yeah, same. I would be under the table though if we had all that at once. Yeah. But yeah, even to your point, Civ, earlier about the them being in the barrels, he's like, poor dwarves. Bill was not badly off now. He slipped from his barrel and waded ashore and then sneaked along to some huts that he could see near the water's edge. He no longer thought twice about picking up a supper in uninvited if he got the chance. He had been obliged to do it for so long, and he knew now only too well what it was to be really hungry, not merely politely interested in the dainties of a well-filled larder. And it's like, oh boy. He's just like, I'm a little hungry. I'm gonna go get some food. Bye, dwarves. Oh, man.
Yeah, and he mentions a few times that like he really hopes he put the lids on tight enough, and I'm like, if you're really worried about that, like, are you afraid these poor dwarves are drowning in there or dying of hypothermia?
Yeah, these friends that he didn't want to leave behind. It's like, knock knock. Are you okay in there? Balin, are you still alive? Signs of life, proof of life, please. You
Yeah,
good?
he seems
Okay.
concerned, but not that much. And I'm like, I think you should be concerned.
Yeah. For sure. Oh man. Yeah, I felt like this chapter was overall pretty like playful and kind of like not like mischievous, but like, it's Bilbo trying to make up a plan to get the dwarves out of their various cells across the palace. Then, like I said, it's that he's got these sassy, snarky lines to them. He's a little bit sassy, snarky in his actions by leaving the dwarves behind in the barrels. Like, I don't know, maybe that shows a little bit of like comfortability of Bilbo with the dwarves as well, because he's like, oh well, I can be a little like sassy, snarky with them because they're my friends. Wait, why did I just skip back to that? Nope. There's 10. There it is. Okay. All right, so chapter 10, unless anybody else have any comments about chapter 9.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, and like even here on this first page of chapter 10, dreary as had been his imprisonment and unpleasant as was his position, to say nothing of the poor dwarves underneath him. It's like, yeah, they've been stuck in barrels. Like, you at least got to go out and stretch your legs.
Get food.
That too. Fill your belly. But yeah, I think what Tim has brought up before as well, where Peter Jackson wanted to turn The Hobbit into like, the action-packed thriller. Oh, excuse me. Like The Lord of the Rings, is like that whole chase sequence can be chalked up to that. Because, as they go down the river and everything, because it's like, that's not in here at all. And it's like, well, there's another example of like, we got to throw in an action sequence. Ooh, excuse me.
Well, yeah, it's like, in the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies, the antagonist is the white orc, and I mean, he's not in the book at all.
Right.
So, like,
Also true.
I think he sets up this antagonist near the beginning of that first movie, and then carries him out, carries him throughout. I mean, that's the final bad guy they fight in the last movie. I mean, like Smaug is there, but he's like a temporary antagonist.
Right. He's kind of just like a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, but in the book, I don't think we really, we've had temporary like antagonists, but it's more just it's like the journey itself is more of the antagonist.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I like that.
Yeah, maybe antagonist is not right the word, but that's the thing that they're like, struggling to
Sure.
make it through. So
For you, those of you who've read the books, the Hobbit before and stuff, you know how in the movie, oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name again, even though I know that there's like the U at the end of it. Legolas's dad.
Thranduil.
Is it Thranduil or Thranduil?
Thranduil.
Oh, Thranduil.
Yeah.
Okay. You know how in the movies they show that his face is like, beat up and like, he's missing parts of it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do they ever explain that in the books? Do we know? Or is that like a Tolkien note that has been written up into one of the supplemental readings? Because, like, did that come from somewhere? Or was it just like, hey, let's throw this in?
No, he did. I'm pretty sure he got it fighting dragon.
I'm fairly certain it comes from one of the supplementary context things, because I don't think it says it in the book, but he actually did fight the worms in the north, so that's why his face is fucked.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if Mork, if you know, but I'm pretty sure it's during the War of Wrath.
I'm gonna assume it's the War of Wrath, seeing that a lot of stuff happened in the War of Wrath that a lot of elves are still holding bits and pieces of.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Gunmar's right. It was fireworms that.
Oh, okay. Is that in the Silmarillion?
I'm checking Google to learn.
There you go.
No, I forget where it was from, but I saw it in the movie, and I had read the books before, and I was like, I don't think that's in there, so I did actually look it up, but I forget where. But they mention it somewhere. It's one of the supplemental things or whatever, where it's just like, hey, he went up north and fought a bunch of the great fireworms, and he got like injured, but he uses his powers to cover it.
Oh, okay. I'm looking it up in my
I think. Don't hold me to that. It's been a hot minute.
It's THR?
Yeah, THRAN.
How the heck is he not in here? Does he have another name?
No, he's just the king in the Hobbit. That was the lore got fleshed out more for Lord of the Rings. So I think it is mentioned in Lord of the Rings, but no, his name's not mentioned in the Hobbit.
Yeah, well, this is like Tolkien, a dictionary, so you would expect it to be in here. There's a huge, massive novel about the elves, which I'm not surprised, but
Even the Lord of the Rings wiki doesn't really give you an answer. Oh.
I'm just like scanning to see if I can see if his name is mentioned in here. I don't know. I'm always curious because like stuff like that, I feel like should have some kind of source material. Because you take I wouldn't say he's like a prominent character, but you take a kind of prominent character and like, you know, destroy his face and say his magic is keeping it perfectly flawlessly elven. It's like, well, where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, they might have tried to give him a reason not to fight Smog because War of Wrath was pretty serious, and Smog's kind of a small dragon comparatively to all the dragons that were there. And I'm fairly convinced if Thranduil wanted to, he could have taken care of Smog.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And if anybody knows different, they definitely correct me. But Tolkien kind of does that repeatedly. Like Glorfindel shows up in Lord of the Rings. Glorfindel like smacked around Balrogs for fun back in the day.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, spoilers! She hasn't read it yet.
It's a mini spoiler.
To be fair, I will probably not remember it. Okay, wait a minute. I see back in the like references in the back that Thranduil is mentioned here. So hold on this page. Hold on.
Found it.
Oh, okay. Do tell.
So, it originally was not inside the Hobbit book, but after they made the film adaptation, they went back in and they were like basically fleshing out a bunch of the things. So they were like, they knew Thranduil had fought in the like battles up north with like the goblins and the dragons. So they decided to add it in as a preliminary note that he was injured in that and hides it with magic. So it is a late adaptation to basically stuff. Basically, they had it already laid out and they realized they had to flesh out a whole bunch of stuff because they were making a movie and they needed this to actually have like meat to it. So they changed things.
I wonder if Christopher Tolkien helped out with that.
Probably.
The things you gotta do when you take a book to a movie.
That didn't really mention much about. I mean, it mentions
Or
him.
take a book to 3 movies.
Ugh.
Fair. But yeah, technically, he got it fighting dragons in the north.
Okay.
In reality, it was never stated until they had to flesh out a bunch of things.
That makes sense.
It's also actually not stated that he's Legolas's dad.
There you go.
Yeah, it's
I'm trying to look up all these references of Thranduil in this encyclopedia thing and see if there's anything that jumps out. Okay, Dodge Charger in my living room.
As a side note, if you really do like dragons, War of the Wrath is a really cool read. Silmarillion.
We'll get there, but yes, I do love dragons. The Targaryen chair I'm sitting in.
Yo, what's the huge one? Is that like Akalon the Black or some crap?
And Calagon the Black, yeah.
Calagon the Black? Holy crap, have you seen the diagram of the size reference between him and Smaug?
Yeah, he's like mountain range sized.
Jeez.
Yeah, he's huge.
Have they done one where they compare like Targaryen lore dragons like Balerion the Dread to that one?
I think I have seen that. There's a guy who does all kinds of sci-fi and fantasy comparisons on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure he does that. And at the very least, I remember, what's the main dragon in The Song of Fire and Ice?
Balerion, or are we talking about Balerion the Dread, like the infamous one that was like Aegon the Conqueror's dragon, or are we talking like?
No, Daenerys is.
Daenerys's dragon is Drogon.
Right, he's a small boy comparatively to the Game of Thrones dragon, but he's like a mosquito compared to Ankalagon.
Dang.
Yeah, this thing is huge.
That's crazy. I mean, granted, Drogon was still considered very small in comparison to like Balerion the Dread or Vagar and stuff like that. So it's like, wow.
No, you got to understand the biggest dragon in Game of Thrones compared to, say the name again.
And Celegon.
Yeah, Celegon the Black in Lord of the Rings, like the biggest Game of Thrones dragon would probably like maybe be the size of his hand. Maybe.
Mm.
When Lord of the Rings said they were going to make a dragon, they were like, "All right, eat that thing to 11 and have fun."
Yeah.
Mm.
Here, I'm sending you a video.
How did Thranduil not get his own, like...
Because he technically started out as a minor character.
Oh, no, I'm not... It's not so much that. He's mentioned, like, it's interesting because in this dictionary reference guide thing I have, Thranduil does not have his own, like, chunk, but he's mentioned in... Hold on. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm yawning so much, my goodness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's mentioned on 7 different pages in this thing, but he does not have his own chapter, or not chapter, but his own little blurb. It's like, anyways. Okay, sorry for the derailment about dragons and Thranduil's.
If you check the chat, I put like size comparisons from Smaug to Enkelligon.
Let's see. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that Balerian's like between Smaug and the Fire Drake of Gondolin. Like he's around there.
Sheesh. That's nuts.
So, yeah. And like I'm pretty sure only one elf. It took only one elf to take down Enkelligon.
Ow.
It's a whole thing.
Oh, okay.
It's a whole thing.
Excellent.
He has a proper pod and anime on his side. Okay, like this.
Okay. Man, that's gonna be fun. You said that was in the Silmarillion, or is that in somewhere else? This whole like War of Wrath and things and like
That's
stuff like.
Silmarillion.
Ooh, okay.
Got more of an expert here now with Tim.
Yeah.
Just coming on to say that I'm sorry I missed most of it. I'm not really going to be able to contribute. I am just trying to battle off hypothermia. So.
Oh, we did that. We did that this weekend.
I'll talk to you guys next week.
Yeah. Bye, Tim. Bye.
You're good, buddy. I did the same thing over the weekend. I get it.
Oh, I'm soaked because of work, so it is what it is.
And go get a hot shower, dude.
All right. Have a nice night, guys.
See ya.
But
luckily, these chapters are pretty simple overall. Like they're not too deep. Okay. Yeah, because it's just like describing, like, you know, obviously he was leaving behind the woodlands and stuff. Yeah, and then we're dealing with, you know, it's like I like that they're starting to bring in obviously Dale into this, which, you know, in the movies, you know, it's just like the visuals for that are just completely dilapidated, destroyed.
And they also spent a lot more time in Dale hiding in the movies than they do in the book.
Yeah.
They're there for a while, right?
In the movies or the books?
The book, like, well, they're there, like, you know, being bed nicely in the book for like a week or two, right?
Yeah, I think it's like
A fortnight, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
At the end of a fortnight, Thorn began to think of departure. Yeah. People are just, they're not in a hurry.
Yeah, I love that there's like such a rush, you know, to get to the Lonely Mountain and everything, and then we get ever closer, and they're like, "No, let's take our time. It's okay. What's a few more days? What's a few more weeks? It's fine."
Yeah.
Although they were being well fed for that part of the their journey, which I imagine they were ready for at that point.
Yeah. And if
My
I
gosh.
just spent like 2 days crammed into a barrel, you know, I'm gonna take it easy for 2 weeks. So
You're not wrong there. That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. Is this the part that they like pop out of the barrels, or?
do you guys remember how long it's been since Smog took over the mountain?
That's a good question.
It's been a while. I'll check.
Because that was something that I remember when I read this as a kid, I didn't quite grasp. And it was one thing that I liked how they handled it in the movie a bit. Just because it was like, I can't even think of his name. The human guy in the town, like, didn't recognize Thorin's name, and he had to like go and look at like, you know, tapestries of legend that his like great grandfather, you know, would have heard of. You know.
He was sleeping in the mountain for 171 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And that also just puts things into perspective too, is that it's like, you know, this entire party, well, not the entire party, if I remember correctly. I could be completely remembering that incorrectly, but it's like a large chunk of this party, you know, was in the Misty Mountain when Smog attacked. So it's like, that means they're at least 171 years old.
Yeah. Thorin was, I'm reading into it, but Thorin was 24 when Smog attacked.
So he's nearly 200.
Yeah. But I know Balin is quite a bit older than him.
Yeah. That's just crazy, because it's like, you know, again, it's that the lifespan difference, and like, I don't know, it's just a completely different world,
Yeah,
obviously.
And that'd be like saying, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln has returned. You know, like, that's how long ago.
Yeah. And that's another good point too, Civ, is that it's like, you think about like American history. You said Abe Lincoln, right? And to most of us, you hear Abe
I did some
Lincoln.
quick math to go back 170-ish years and thought of someone famous. So
Yeah, that works. That works. But if you think about it, though, it's like Abe Lincoln, you know, whenever you hear his name, you think like, oh my gosh, that was forever ago. And it's like, you know, and then George Washington, you think of was forever ago before that. But it's like, that's still like a nothing in the age of Middle Earth.
yeah.
So it's just cool to be like, wow, like, you know, and that even of course holds true to like us today, obviously, is that, you know, our history is pretty small and pretty like short term compared to even, you know, obviously like Europe and, you know, Asia and everything. It's like our history is so tiny in comparison to their just vast history.
Yep.
So it's like, even though we go ahead, sorry.
I wanted to make a correction from what I said. Thorin is actually the oldest.
Really?
Yeah, he was 24 when Smog attacked, and Balin was 7 when Smog attacked. And then the rest of the dwarves weren't born in the mountain.
Yeah, I think that's a change they made from the movie to the book. That sounds really right. Yeah. In the book, Thorin's the oldest.
Interesting. Yeah, I was about to say, because in the movie, it's like Balin is like ancient.
Yeah.
Like he's
and
given
was
up.
fighting there, right? One of the people that Thorin was, helped to save, when the dragon attacked.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good point. Probably again to kind of give that kind of like father figure to Thorin, and for the the plot. Do it for the plot. Sorry, I'm skimming the next part where they were taken to the master and stuff, because I'm trying to see if he also doesn't remember. Well, he doesn't actually, because he's like, is this true? Asked the master. As a matter of fact, he thought it far more likely than the return of the king under the mountain, if any such person had ever existed. Like, I think this was about these are the prisoners of the king that escaped, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, is this true? But it's, again, he's believing that, my brain is just, my brain has been struggling all day today. It's like, he's like, I can't believe that the king out of the mountain has come back.
Yeah, because they mentioned early in the book a little bit about like what the dwarves remembered, and then they kind of say, well, men don't remember any of that. All they have are like these really old songs and tales of like, gold flowing in the rivers when Thorin returned. So like these are like, stories and legends.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh yeah, sure, this mythical person I've heard about, from
right.
has returned. Yeah, right.
Right. And again, back to the age, the age, like lifespan of people is that 100 and, what'd you say it was? 147? 37?
I'm sorry?
How many years was it since Smaug attacked?
171.
Oh, I remember there was a 1 and a 7 in there somewhere. It's like, that's 2 lifetimes, in man. At least by our Earth standards. So it's just like, very unlikely that anybody saw him or knew of him, like, as a person, other than just like a thing of legend or a thing to tell stories about. So again, just like really cool. See. Reading this part, they're like, oh, the king, Lauren. Well, they get treated really nicely. They get like a whole house to themselves.
And more importantly, they get food.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I'll sleep anywhere as long as you give me a warm meal.
Facts. If you were there this weekend, you would know that I slept anywhere. I fell asleep on the couch Saturday night.
I wanted to go, but yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, on the couch.
Hey. I actually got asked to be an NPC when Gunmar was like, or not Gunmar, Grim was like, are you coming? I was like, I'm not really built for this. But I want to come because I want to see Sawed Off. All right, we have a question in chat. Momentary pause for everybody. So, question is, who is our favorite character so far?
Oh, so far, just from what we've read?
Yeah, just from what we read. So for context here, Cake, we are in chapter 10 right now. This week's reading was 9 and 10, as the title says right there. But so that's what we're doing, the first 10 chapters. Favorite character so far. Which is tough for me because I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that is That's a real tough one. So far for me in the first 10 chapters, I've always loved Beorn, the berserker, the berserker.
Yeah, he was cool.
Just the fact that he, kind of at one with nature, gets to be a bear at times, and is generally badass, and he gets to make a lot of honey and perhaps mead. That's definitely my kind of life.
And he just seems like this, in a way, like a very like gentle giant. It's like he's essentially a farmer, and it's like, I'm this big bad tough guy shapeshifter, but I'm also a farmer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got a vote for Beorn. Okay. Who's next?
Favorite character. I would honestly say either Beorn or just go with the obvious one and say Bilbo.
Well, okay. So why Bilbo?
I mean, you can't help but not love just like he has these moments where he's uber badass. He has these moments where he completely like drops the ball. He has these moments that make him so relatable where it's just like, I'm on this adventure, but I just want to be at home, warm, next to a fire, smoking my pipe.
With food.
And like, I'm not going to lie, after trauma bonding, there were definitely moments where I was like, I just want to be next to a fire with food. I get it now. I get it. So I'm like, Bilbo, like, I relate.
Okay. Civ, Jay, one of you guys want to go next?
I would say that Bilbo's high up there. I liked in these chapters, he started to, I feel like there were, a lot of time passed while he was like in the king's castle and stuff, but I felt like he kind of really started to come into his own. And a little bit of how to take care of himself, how to use like, this cool ring he found, and how to help out the group. And so I really like that, because I felt like earlier in the book, some of the things that I thought Bilbo had done was really just things he had done in the movie and hadn't really done in the book. And so I like, and this is character growth, so like,
Sure.
but I would say I also just like how kind of like does his own thing. You don't have to understand me. That Gandalf is.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say, and he's just like, and he's really, and he's in some ways seems, he's in the book, it's actually like him that is the one who like does most of the stuff to defeat the ogres, and he kills a bunch of goblins, and but then he's also like, I gotta go run this errand, stay on the path, and you'll be fine. But I gotta go take care of my own shit. I'll be back.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't mean to stay with you this long and everything. And it was like, oh, thanks, buddy. Like, thanks. Yeah. Glad you just wanted to spend all this time with us. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. I'm curious to see as we read through the next few chapters, but growing up, my favorite character was always Smaug. And so I'm curious to see if that will still be the case.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
But I always like bad guys. Like, I always feel like, especially if they're well done, like,
sure,
just kind of drawn to like, understanding them, and I love the dialogue between Bilbo and Smaug. So
yeah, I'm very excited about that definitely, because it's like, even in the movie, I thought it was very well done, from like the banter, the back and forth and stuff like that. So I'm really curious to see how well that's portrayed, or how well the movies did at portraying whatever the book says. So
yeah. So yeah, we'll see if that's the case. As this like said, it's been so long since I've read the books that.
I like it.
I
like it. What about you, Jay? You're gonna have to actually chime in here.
Probably to piggyback off Godmar and Bilbo, just kind of from his evolution of when he started, and he kind of got thrust into this adventure, by choice or not. And you can kind of tell the dwarves or first were like, the heck are we bringing him with us for? And then when they're all locked up with the wood elves, he's kind of started getting the respect now. Like, hey, this guy's actually kind of useful.
Yeah, he just saved our butts
So
from our favorite critters, the elves. That's a good point. Yeah, I feel like everybody's reasoning, like, Beorn was cool for the same reasons that were mentioned of, like, you know, he's this really epic, you know, shape-shifting bear guy, but, like, he's just kind of like, I like my peace. Like, you know, and Gandalf was like, I'm not going to bring you all in because he gets overwhelmed by that and might kick us out and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I can kind of relate to that from the, you know, kind of would be nice to live that peaceful life of just, you know, leave me alone. Like a little bit of that get off my lawn energy. And yeah, the sass that comes from Gandalf is very cool. And the, like was mentioned, the just like, well, okay, I'm gonna leave you now and I'll see you when I see you and stuff. Like that's really been fun. And I agree, the massive character arc of Bilbo has been really cool. And but he still like not holds on to who he was at the start, but like he's definitely still himself since he's constantly, you know, as our drinking game protests is the you know, like he mentions home, he mentions his bed, he mentions, you know, his pipe, whatever. Like he mentions something that's like, I still miss home. As fun as this is and as much like as cool as this adventure is, still wish I was home.
Just to add more fuel to the Gandalf is awesome fire, that like pop off that he does where he just leaves them for this period of time, he actually, like just like in the movie, he actually is like going to fight Sauron at this moment.
Really?
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, he like goes with, I'm pretty sure he goes with the other four wizards, and like we see the White Council, which is Galadriel, who's probably my very favorite character in all of Lord of the Rings, and Elrond, and like they are actually attacking Dol Guldur where Sauron is like actively right now.
Is that the whole scene in the movies where Galadriel is there, and is that?
Yeah, and she casts him away.
Yeah.
In the appendices, I'm pretty sure it's Gandalf that does it, but that is taking place currently. That's what he had to go do.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh yeah. I felt weird when I was thinking about it when everybody was saying their things. It's like, Cake in chat is saying, loved how Tolkien wrote Gollum actually felt like a creepy, threatening creature. I mean, he's pretty creepy in the movies too, but yeah, I rewatched. I was telling them in our Discord chat about this, that the 1977 or whenever it was produced and released and whatever original like animated one of the Hobbit movie, I felt like their rendition of Gollum was very true to the books. Yeah, I agree. Very creepy. He's kind of like this paranoid. You know, I mean, I would be too if I had been alone for however long he's been alone for. And yeah, he's very creepy and stuff. And it's like, whew. Oh, that was a good question. I should kind of think of like who all have we actually met that isn't just some random like one-off character. I like Elf Knight number 6. He's my favorite character.
I will say, like, I remember reading this as a kid, and other than Thorin, I couldn't keep any of the dwarves apart in my mind. There was just way too many of them, and I remember there was like Thorin and Bilbo, and then a whole bunch of other dwarves.
Yep.
And now in the book, like I feel like I'm able to keep them more separate. And I don't know if that's because I'm older or because I can kind of put faces from the movie to the dwarf names. and even though it's very different, and I really enjoy reading the book, but like just that like face and name recognition has kind of helped me be like,
Sure.
oh, that's Billy and Killy, that's Bumbor, that's
That's a good point.
these Fallen and I can't think of the other dwarf from Heaven. Like I said, I can see his face, and when I read his name, like I'm like, oh yeah, that's that one.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And so I feel like that's really helped me in a way just that I wasn't really expecting, because I almost was expecting to read this again and not be able to keep any of the dwarves separate.
No, I agree that if I read a book that has a movie adaptation, I definitely not necessarily always. I think it depends on if I read the book first or if like, whatever. But like, I definitely know that feeling of, okay, well, I have like a general gist of what I think this person looks like based on the author's description. But then the movie comes out and it's like, well, if that's who he or she's supposed to look like, then that's who he or she's supposed to look like. And yeah, you get this just like clear, like, okay, the actor is so and so, got it, like, or whatever. But yeah, it definitely does help, because even when you were listing off names, I was like, oh, I'm picturing them in my mind. I know exactly who you're talking to. And even here, back to the book, it was at the end of a fortnight, Thorin began to think of departure. And I know that was already mentioned, but it's like, boom, there it is. Like, yeah, they're just hanging out for 2 weeks. Like, okay, guys.
I don't think I'd be in a hurry to go fight a dragon either, though, in their defense.
No, I don't know. I don't think I would be either.
Oh, you pansies.
Okay.
Okay, Gunmar. Sure.
The dragon's literally called the the whole land around the mountains literally called the Desolation of Smaug. I'm not in a hurry to go get melted.
It's not on my bucket list.
Yeah,
It's
not top
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think because we'll probably end up reading another 2 chapters, because that's, unless anybody else has any more comments on chapter 10, that kind of wraps that up. But I'm curious to see if these chapters, obviously we've seen the movie, so we kind of know that yes, we are building to an epic climax here. But I'm curious like what that looks like. Again, this is my never have read mindset for it. Is that I'm very curious to see like what or how they develop these next little bits to describe like the Battle of the 5 Armies, and like Smaug coming to what's the river town called?
Lake Town.
Thank you.
Lake Town.
I just picked I literally said the river town. Literally picked the wrong body of water. It's fine. But it's like curious to see like Smaug's attack of Lake Town. Like I'm just very curious to see how it differs from the movie. And then like being able to make comments of like, oh, they blew this out of the water, man. It's so good. Like, wow, like these books, whoa. Or if it's just like, it's just another copy, or whatever. Like I'm very curious.
I will just try and I don't know what to call it, but the battle isn't that long.
Temper expectations.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to find the word. Temper expectations. The battle is not the huge affair that they make it in the movies.
But again, that goes back to what we've talked about in several previous group meetings, where it's the movies did what they did to have those ginormous, grand battle scenes, and it's like, no, like it's not written that way.
Yeah.
So no, that makes sense.
To put it to perspective, the last movie, which is my least favorite of the 3,
They just progressively get worse.
is 50 pages. in the book.
Yeah.
It's 50 pages. Just
Like
the whole last
3 hour
movie, which is
movie.
like almost 3 hours. You could read those 50 pages out loud many times. Like,
Wow. That's
it's
wow.
50 pages in the book.
Well, and this isn't even that big of a book. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a very big book, and yet you're saying you made 3 movies out of it. Like, okay, bro. Okay.
Yeah, it's about 300 pages for me. So 50 pages is what? A sixth?
Yeah.
So the last movie is a sixth of the book.
Yeah.
Like,
That's just sad.
There's some things though they added that I did like I said, when the White Council attacking Dol Guldur, I always thought that was a really cool addition.
Sure.
But then there's some really silly additions, like the guy who's supposed to be Grima Wormtongue and is like,
What?
the guy who's always whispering into the master's ear, the master of
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
Wait,
it was
forgot about that.
like a cartoon villain that they just inserted in there.
Oh, well, yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely is attempting to be the comic relief in the movies, that's for sure. And you're just like trying too hard, forcing it. Yeah. Those are like, I'm definitely going to, whenever we get done with this one, which will probably be only like a handful more weeks at the rate we're going. But I'm very curious to go watch the movies afterwards and be like, that's not in the books. That's not in the books. That's in the books. Nope, that's not in the, whatever. Like, very curious to go back now with my own set of eyes, my own knowledge to do that. So, all right. Well, anybody have any final remarks about chapter 10?
Nope.
Alrighty. Well, we'll probably do another 2 chapters unless we see that unless chapter 11. Oh, nope. I literally was thumbing through it and I was like, nope, chapter 11 is very short.
Yeah, but 12 is long. 12 is the smog thing, I think.
Let's see.
May not be that long though if 11's super short.
I think I think
It'll-
you're right. So I think that's when he's in the mountain, when Bilbo's in the mountain.
But it's still not even that bad. 11 and 12 is I can't do math right now. Like 30 pages.
Well, do we just want to read through 13 too? That's
That's
an
40.
additional 10 pages for me.
Yeah, it's like 40 pages in total, or 18
Yeah.
pages.
Yeah.
Or 38. Gosh, I can't math. Yeah, 38 pages. That's fine by me.
That's a good spot to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll post in the chat after this that we're going to be doing chapters 11, 12, and 13 for the coming week.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Well, good discussion, guys. I think we're all going to be able to have, we won't have trauma bonding in the middle of this week's excursion, so that'll be good. Anyways, so good discussion, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I will see you guys a week from now for our discussion for week 6 reading. So good job, everybody.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right.
See you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Later. Later.